Early life and formative years. Adolf Hitler was born on April 20, 1889, in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria near the German border. His father, Adolf Hitler, was a customs official with a stern demeanor, while his mother, Clara, was nurturing and devoted to her children. Adolf was the fourth of 6 children, but only he and his younger sister, Paula, survived into adulthood. His early years were marked by a turbulent relationship with his father, who disapproved of Adolf's lack of discipline and academic ambition. Adolf wanted his son to follow in his footsteps as a civil servant, but Adolf dreamed of becoming an artist, a passion that would shape his early adulthood. Hitler's childhood was relatively unremarkable, though he showed an early interest in German nationalism, influenced by the pan-Germanic sentiments prevalent in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. At school, he was an average student, often clashing with teachers and struggling with subjects that didn't interest him. By age 16, he dropped out of secondary school, partly due to poor performance and partly due to his rebellious nature. After his father's death in 1903, Hitler moved to Vienna in 1907, hoping to pursue a career in art. He applied to the Vienna Academy of Fine Arts but was rejected twice, in 1907 and 1908, a blow that deeply affected him. The Academy's rejection, coupled with the death of his mother from breast cancer in 1907, left Hitler emotionally and financially adrift. In Vienna, Hitler lived in poverty, staying in men's hostels and scraping by as a day laborer and occasional painter of postcards and advertisements. The city's cosmopolitan and multicultural environment, with its mix of Jews, Slavs, and other ethnic groups, clashed with his growing nationalist views. During this period, he was exposed to anti-Semitic pamphlets and political movements, including the writings of figures like Georg Ritter von Schirnerer, a prominent Austrian anti-Semite, and Karl Lueger, the mayor of Vienna whose Christian Social Party used anti-Semitism as a political tool. These ideas began to shape Hitler's worldview, blending his resentment of personal failures with a scapegoating of Jewish people and other minorities for societal problems. In 1913, at age 24, Hitler moved to Munich, Germany, seeking a fresh start. He continued to live modestly, painting and selling watercolors. When World War I erupted in 1914, Hitler saw an opportunity to serve the country he admired. He enlisted in the Bavarian army, a significant moment that gave him purpose and a sense of belonging. World War I and political awakening. Hitler served as a dispatch runner in the 16th Bavarian Reserve Regiment during World War I, a dangerous role that involved carrying messages across battlefields. He fought on the Western Front, including in battles like Ypres and the Somme, and was wounded twice. Once in 1916 by a shell fragment and again in 1918 by a gas attack, which temporarily blinded him. His service earned him the Iron Cross, 2nd class, and later the Iron Cross, 1st class, a rare honor for a soldier of his low rank. Despite his bravery, Hitler never rose above corporal, likely due to his lack of leadership skills at the time or his superiors' perception of him as better suited to solitary tasks. The war profoundly shaped Hitler's ideology. He viewed it as a heroic struggle for German greatness, and Germany's defeat in 1918 devastated him. He blamed the loss on internal enemies, communists, socialists, and Jews, echoing the stab-in-the-back myth that claimed Germany was betrayed by its own people rather than defeated militarily. While recovering from his gas attack in a military hospital, Hitler learned of Germany's surrender and the signing of the Treaty of Versailles, which imposed harsh reparations, territorial losses, and military restrictions on Germany. These events fueled his anger and sense of humiliation, setting the stage for his political career. After the war, Hitler remained in the army, working as an intelligence agent in Munich. His task was to monitor political groups suspected of revolutionary activities. In 1919, he was assigned to investigate the German Workers' Party, a small nationalist group. Instead of merely observing, Hitler joined the party, impressed by its anti-Semitic and anti-communist rhetoric. His oratorical skills quickly made him a standout member. He began speaking at rallies, drawing crowds with his passionate denunciations of the Versailles Treaty, Jews, and Marxists. By 1920, the party was renamed the National Socialist German Workers' Nazi Party, and Hitler designed its swastika emblem, drawing on ancient symbols to evoke a sense of Germanic heritage. Rise to power in 1921, Hitler became the leader of the Nazi Party, leveraging his charisma and propaganda skills to expand its membership. He formed the Sturmabteilung, SA, a paramilitary group that intimidated opponents and protected Nazi rallies. The early 1920s were a time of economic turmoil in Germany, with hyperinflation and unemployment fueling public discontent. Hitler capitalized on this, presenting himself as a savior who could restore Germany's greatness. In November 1923, inspired by Mussolini's march on Rome, Hitler attempted to seize power in the beer hall putsch, a failed coup in Munich. He and his followers stormed a beer hall where Bavarian officials were meeting, declaring a revolution. The putsch collapsed the next day after a clash with police, and Hitler was arrested. Tried for treason, he used the trial as a platform to gain national attention, delivering impassioned speeches about Germany's plight. He was sentenced to 5 years in Landsberg prison but served only 9 months. While in prison, Hitler wrote Mein Kampf, My Struggle, a mix of autobiography and political manifest. The book outlined his anti-Semitic beliefs, his vision of Aryan racial superiority, and his plans for German expansion through Lebensraum, living space in Eastern Europe. Though poorly written and initially ignored, Mein Kampf later became a cornerstone of Nazi ideology. After his release in 1924, Hitler rebuilt the Nazi Party, focusing on legal political strategies rather than violent uprisings. The party's growth was slow during the stable years of the Weimar Republic, but the Great Depression, beginning in 1929, created fertile ground for extremism. Mass unemployment, poverty, and distrust in the government boosted the Nazis' appeal. Hitler's speeches, blending nationalism, anti-Semitism, and promises of economic recovery, resonated with a frustrated populace. By 1932, the Nazi Party was the largest in the German parliament, though it lacked a majority. On January 30, 1933, after political maneuvering and underestimation by conservative elites, President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Hitler as chancellor. Many believed they could control him, but Hitler quickly consolidated power. The Reichstag fire in February 1933, blamed on communists, allowed him to pass the Enabling Act, granting him dictatorial powers. By July, the Nazi Party was the only legal party, and opposition was crushed through arrests, violence, and censorship. Nazi Germany and totalitarian rule as chancellor, Hitler transformed Germany into a totalitarian state. He banned trade unions, opposition parties, and independent media. The Gestapo, the Nazi secret police, monitored and eliminated dissent. Propaganda, led by Joseph Goebbels, glorified Hitler as the infallible Führer and saturated society with Nazi ideology. The regime promoted a cult of personality, with Hitler's image omnipresent in schools, workplaces, and public spaces. Anti-Semitism became state policy. The Nuremberg Laws of 1935 stripped Jews of citizenship, banned intermarriage with non-Jews, and institutionalized discrimination. Jewish businesses were boycotted, and violence against Jews escalated, culminating in Kristallnacht, November 9–10, 1938, when Nazi mobs attacked Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues. This marked a shift toward systematic persecution, laying the groundwork for the Holocaust. Hitler's economic policies initially appeared successful. Public works projects like the Autobahn and rearmament reduced unemployment and restored national pride. However, these were unsustainable, driven by massive borrowing and a focus on preparing for war. Hitler's vision of Lebensraum required territorial expansion, which he pursued aggressively. In 1936, he remilitarized the Rhineland, violating the Versailles Treaty. In 1938, he annexed Austria-Anschluss and demanded the Sudetenland from Czechoslovakia, which was granted in the Munich Agreement by Britain and France, who hoped to appease him. World War II and the Holocaust on September 1, 1939, Hitler invaded Poland, triggering World War II after France and the UK declared war. Germany's blitzkrieg tactics led to rapid conquests, including Denmark, Norway, Belgium, the Netherlands, and France by 1940. Hitler's alliance with Italy and Japan, the Axis powers, strengthened his position, and by 1941 much of Europe was under Nazi control. However, his decision to invade the Soviet Union in June 1941, Operation Barbarossa, marked a turning point. The brutal Russian winter, fierce Soviet resistance, and overextended supply lines halted German advances. Simultaneously, Hitler implemented the final solution, a plan to exterminate Europe's Jewish population. The Holocaust saw the establishment of death camps like Auschwitz, Treblinka, and Sobibor, where millions were killed in gas chambers or through forced labor and starvation. Approximately 6 million Jews, along with millions of Romani people, disabled individuals, political prisoners, and others, were murdered. This genocide, driven by Hitler's obsessive anti-Semitism, remains one of history's greatest atrocities. By 1943, the war turned against Germany. The defeat at Stalingrad, Allied victories in North Africa, and intense bombing campaigns weakened the Nazi regime. The D-Day invasion of Normandy in June 1944 accelerated Germany's collapse. On July 20, 1944, a group of German officers attempted to assassinate Hitler in the Operation Valkyrie plot, but he survived, leading to brutal reprisals against thousands of suspected conspirators. Downfall and death as the Allies advanced, Hitler retreated to his Berlin bunker in early 1945. He became increasingly erratic, issuing unrealistic orders and blaming his generals for failures. On April 29, 1945, as Soviet forces closed in, Hitler married his longtime partner, Eva Braun, in a small ceremony. The next day, April 30, 1945, they died by suicide, Hitler with a gunshot to the head and Braun by cyanide poisoning. Their bodies were burned outside the bunker to prevent capture or desecration. Berlin fell to the Soviets days later, and Germany surrendered on May 7, 1945. The war in Europe ended, leaving the continent in ruins and millions dead. Legacy and impact Hitler's actions had catastrophic consequences. World War II resulted in over 70 million deaths, including combatants and civilians. The Holocaust's scale and horror reshaped global understanding of genocide and human rights. Germany was divided and occupied, its economy and infrastructure devastated. The Nuremberg trials held surviving Nazi leaders accountable, establishing precedents for international law. Hitler's ideology of racial hatred, nationalism, and authoritarianism left a lasting scar. His regime demonstrated the dangers of unchecked power and propaganda, influencing modern efforts to protect democracy and human rights. The memory of his atrocities continues to shape discussions on tolerance, diversity, and the prevention of extremism.